Not bad. This is the first time since we entered God's realm that we obtained so much points and rank rewards. Zheng was laughing stupidly below God, looking unbelievably dumb. However, everyone was looking dumbfounded at their points, so they didn't care how stupidly Zheng was laughing. They themselves weren't much better. In summary, we struck it rich this time. Ha ha ha, in the future we can 2 bowls of rice instead when we eat. Zheng laughed exaggeratedly. Despite having the airs of an expert while battling other teams, he would completely and utterly become a normal human when he relaxed. What, looking at you, it's as if you've never seen this much points and rank rewards before. Cheng Xiao said disdainfully at the side. Don't say it like that. I really haven't. Zheng replied so. Ignoring the idle talk for now, Team China did indeed have a great harvest in this team battle. Just their basic points earned was over 10,000. There were also 2 members among Team East C with their genetic constraint unlocked. Those were another 2 great profits. With the rank rewards as well, Team China could practically exchange their desired abilities and enhancements. It really was a team battle to perfect Team China's strengths. How about the other teams? Zheng finally recovered after making a ruckus with the others for a long while, and asked Xian curiously. Xian was currently fiddling with a strange object, so it was instead Honglu who spoke up. Every team's circumstances are different. For example, we needed to wake up our team members. We also had consecutive uphill battles, so we lacked a surplus of points and rank rewards. Thus, we were given a team battle. Other teams may have it differently, and should have gotten movies or team battles to perfect their strength. When you say it like that, then how about Team East C? Zheng was curious in his heart, asking, Team East C met us, so they couldn't have perfected their strength. How could this be counted as perfecting their strength for the final battle? Where's the fairness? Fairness. You want to find fairness in this God's realm? The so-called fairness is something you grasp yourself using your own power, whether it be in the real world or fake worlds. You want others to give you their fairness as a handout? Honglu laughed coldly. You are right. It's unfair for Team East C. If it does need explaining, why not use Xian's main character theory? You need to display your strength if you want to seize the appellation of main character of God's realm. You need to continuously unlock your genetic constraint until God can't do anything to you. You'll be the main character then, just like many mangas, novels, movies, television shows or even a game. Side characters exist only to prop up and support the main character. To God, we're strong contenders to be the main characters, while Team East C are but side characters. This fairness is for us, and fairness couldn't possibly exist for them. The surrounding people all froze inside when they heard that. Zheng smiled bitterly. If you say it like that, aren't we still under God's control? This fairness is only a relative fairness we were forced into. Correct. If we want to talk about the fairness for teams in the final battle, why not we split the teams into 3 tiers? The first tier is Team China, Team Devil, and Team Celestial, the 3 strongest and most likely teams to become the main characters. Second tier are the teams of Neos and Zhao Zuokan, or those teams with similar powerhouses or brains. They may become secondary main characters by luck or coincidence. The third tier is of teams like Team East C. They practically have no chance to be the main character, so they can only be the other team's stepping stones. If so, we can roughly gauge the true number of teams in the final battle. Honglu muttered as he pinched his hair. Oh. What does that mean? It means that, do you think Team East C still has the strength to battle? Not just them, but the teams that were decimated in team battles with strong teams as well, do you think they have the strength left to battle? The logic is simple. Their strength is already whittled down to the utmost. They can only survive with great difficulty in the final battle, with even the most ordinary of monsters being able to endanger them. They can only rely on strong teams or be annihilated by them. The crux will be whether killing others accumulates points in the final battle or completes missions. At the same time, we need to be mentally prepared. As he spoke, Honglu suddenly started giggling. Prepare for what? Prepare to destroy the weak teams. Zheng frowned. No, prepare for weak teams to rely on us. This is the final battle, so there won't be too many restrictions like in normal team battles. But they'll definitely exist, and will be very strange. We don't know what kind of restrictions will be used to ensure the teams have no choice but to fight. Honglu muttered. Alright, let's not discuss the final battle for now. It's the next movie anyways. All we can do before that is continuously improve ourselves, meeting all changes by sticking to this strategy. I also have to fully grasp all my current power. My clone is very strong. I really don't know if I can beat him. Zheng smiled bitterly when he said this. In the perfect storm, clone Zheng had specially come to see him. Although the two hadn't faced off and only conversed a few sentences, one could glean much information from the other side just through pressure alone when someone reached their level. This included their approximate power. However, clone Zheng's power had still remained as obscure as before. It was as if it was hidden in an enormous sea, and was unfathomably deep. Zheng sighed to the rest, everyone should have their own goal for strengthening yourselves already. Come look for me or the others if you lack the points or rank rewards to exchange it. Honglu, I'll leave this to you to arrange. I may be going into closed-door training in the basement after this. Well, go to the Lord of the Rings world to expend all our points after that. Before that, in case someone doesn't have points and comes to look for me, I'll be going on the last day. That'll be it. Any questions? Everyone nodded their head silently. Only Lan opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, before stopping. She ended up lowering her head, not saying a word. Lan Zheng silently said in his mind. I know. Thank you for all the times you've silently supported me from behind along the way. It's because I received so much of your help that I stand here alive today. The final battle comes. When we win it, it'll have a solution. Trust me. It's not that, Lan said silently in her mind. I just wanted to ask. When I was sleeping before, I seemed to hear a voice calling me. It wasn't Team East's Psyche Force user. Was it you? Was it you calling me? Yes. It was me calling you. Zheng was silent for a moment before finally opening his mouth to answer. When he finished speaking, he returned to his room, not even turning his head back. The vast majority of the team began to question Honglu. Only a few silently returned to their rooms, like Ying Kong and Zero. As the main combatants of the team, they also had to undergo certain kinds of training. First, they had to completely familiarize themselves with the enhancements they were going to strengthen later. Secondly, they had to readjust their states, whether mentally or physically. Zheng and Lori fell asleep immediately after, and a wordless night passed after. On the second day, when Zheng went alone to the basement and stood there alone, thinking. When one's strength reached his stage, it was difficult to have a qualitative change in their bonus quality. What he needed was a change in regards to his insights. The final battle, my clone, as well as everyone, countless thoughts filled Zheng's mind. He suppressed all these thoughts, and began to ponder on his strength. Like I said before. I don't have any fortes outside of power and speed. I don't have Zero's long-distance sniping, the main personality, Ying Kong's combat techniques, Hung's archery skills, or even Cheng Xiao's martial accomplishments or Xian's intelligence. I don't have any of these, and only have the power and speed that continuously evolved on the edge between life and death. First, let's consider explosion. This level is enough to equal anyone below the third stage, unless they possess an extremely abnormal enhancement. Otherwise, I can definitely match any of them. When Zheng thought of this, he naturally activated his explosion. If it's destruction, they can only rival me if they have the fourth stage. Even an ordinary fourth stage isn't enough. This is a great weapon capable of battling with the mid-fourth stage. Although my body now is already very strong, it still can't use this move for long periods. In other words, this can be considered my trump card. Zheng's body then naturally released the power of destruction. Then lastly, there's the strongest technique that can rival my clone. Chaos, Genesis Splitter. It's a double-edged sword that harms others as well as myself. I can only use it if there's no other alternative. Zheng's pressure began to surge, but Chaos wasn't activated in the end. It looks like I still have a long way to go. I can't rely on this must-kill technique to beat my clone. It's like relying on luck and handing my life to destiny. The first thing to train now is my maximum power I can unleash without activating Chaos, Genesis Splitter. The stage God had set for the final battle was Resident Evil, Extinction. It was a movie world that had the whole world as its scope. Of course, saying it was the whole world was slightly exaggerating. The main battlefield would be the American mainland, only that the T-virus had broken out across the whole world. This series of movies really does have an affinity with us. We started with Resident Evil and our turning point was there too. Now, the conclusion will be at Resident Evil 2. Although their training had started, information about the final battle still remained important. Thus, on third day after everyone had rested and reorganized, Zheng gathered everyone to discuss some matters pertaining to the final battle. According to the information from God, the team's entry times won't be determined by strength. Everyone will be randomly thrown in during a period of 24 hours. In other words, the influence gained from the gap in time won't be too great. Secondly, the entry point is the entire America with a random drop point. I have actually some uncertainties about this. The American territory is huge and only slightly smaller than China. If we enter as small teams, and at random at that, 2 teams may appear at the east and west coasts. The final battle may take years to finish. If so, we can basically confirm the mission in the final battle. As usual, Xian was silently fiddling with his toys while Honglu analyzed as he pinched his hair. Generally, there are 3 possibilities for the final battle. The first is a mutual slaughter, with only one team, or even one person left standing. However, considering that God's realm teams have always been calculated using teams, only one team surviving is logical. This has the largest probability. Secondly, we would all have to reach a place, likely either somewhere underground or some symbolic structure. Only one team can enter and survive. The third possibility would be them using the random drop points to calculate a place to reach within a certain time. This location would be somewhere that can't be entered freely, with the ticket in being the number of kills. Honglu plucked off a hair, smiling at everyone. That's my conclusion. The first possibility is the largest, followed by the third possibility, with the second being the least. The final battle will be a festival of death of all teams, and only the strongest, smartest, and luckiest will survive. Luck? Hung seemed to think of something, and asked Xian, are we not the main characters? Our team China should be luckier than the other teams, right? They too, are main characters. Xian raised his head, saying indifferently. Anyone can be a main character, with the crux being whether you can win this title. We're preparing for a team battle, and so are the other teams. If you're relying on being a main character, you might as well just lie down and wait to become a world-creating god. Unfortunately, even if the main character really exists, and we really are the main characters of this box isn't one of those power fantasy novels, mangas, or movies. This is a box of genuine horror movies, and we're completely different from those boxes of power fantasy worlds. True Hung also regularly reads some fantasy novels. Although a vast majority were power fantasies through and through, there was no lack of novels with hard work, where the main character had close shaves with death. There were even many with the main characters dying, so Xian saying this was believable. Zheng sighed and suddenly rose to his feet. Then Xian and Honglu will arrange everyone's training. He'll be going off to train too. He turned around and left the room, directly returning to the basement. What happened to him? He looked so listless. Cheng Xiao asked curiously. Zero, who was besides him, was silent for a while before he replied. He's conserving mental energy to break through his limits. Now, his entire focus is concentrated there, so where would he have the leisure to think about other things? Indeed, Zheng's mind was currently completely engrossed in explosion, destruction, and chaos, Genesis Splitter. His mind was only on things like qi, blood energy, refined qi, and magic, and how to raise his strength and become more powerful. This was what he was contemplating now. Since we need to go a movie world to train, I won't be able to have a full body repair for a long time. In other words, I can't use chaos, Genesis Splitter. No, I should still be able to train it, only that I can't use it. I can test out having refined qi and magic having some slight contact, or create the technique instant chaos. Although, the difficulty will be huge. Zheng stood in the basement. He merely stood there without making any special movement. He looked to be an ordinary person standing there in a daze. However, under the control of infinitesimal control beneath his skin, qi and blood energy, as well as refined qi and magic, had been divided into tiny strands. They were all stored into his dantian and head. This division was settled within mere minutes. He then merged a strand of qi and magic together. Unexpectedly, the qi was directly assimilated within when it approached the magic, and the magic didn't have the slightest change. It was just like a pebble falling into the ocean. Zheng was momentarily struck by disappointment. After all, the gap in quality between the two was incredibly wide. It took a vast amount of qi to refine a strand of refined qi. The same logic pertained to magic. That was why a single strand of qi was like a stone within a river, and was unable to draw a reaction from the magic. If he was to mobilize all the qi in his body to react with magic, he wouldn't need to bother thinking about using destruction. Alright then. I'll test out the scaled down version of chaos. Zheng thought about it for a long time, before being unable to resist fusing a strand of refined qi and magic. This was different from the fusion that occurred on his skin. It was a complete fusion of it within his body, the mechanism behind it exactly the same as chaos, Genesis Splitter, just scaled down. The 2-minute quantities of refined qi and magic merged, and within an instant, they annihilated each other and vanished. At the same time, an enormous energy seeded and erupted from that point, an energy much greater than destruction. It was still smaller than chaos, Genesis Splitter. Although it was huge, it was insufficient to wreck Zheng's body while in his demi-dragon transformation. He was immediately overjoyed. Zheng thought that he had finally found a balance between destruction and chaos. However, who would have expected that abnormalities would occur in the next moment? Although the quantity used to provoke a reaction was but a strand each, the remaining refined qi and magic seemed to experience a tug as the reaction burst out. The energy wasn't one from a reaction produced on his skin, but an enormous energy that was erupting within his body. It drew all his refined qi and magic together. Without even a second of leeway, Zheng truly entered chaos, Genesis Splitter. Boom. Zheng didn't hesitate. He stomped down forcefully, the ground immediately cracking apart. The scars on the ground spread dozens of meters away, with the man himself disappearing. Everyone within Zheng's home sensed the entire room trembling violently. Then, that thunderous roar was carried over. Before the roar ended, the room's door was broken down and everyone rushed out of the room, only to see Zheng sitting down there at God's platform in a daze. The light beam of God's full body repair had just retracted, which meant he had just been fully healed. Still so far. Zheng looked at everyone who was surrounding him. He didn't rise, only laughing bitterly non-stop. The gap from my clone remains huge. He himself must be increasing his power now. How will I obtain victory over this fated opponent of mine in the final battle? This fated opponent, perhaps it truly was fate. The man who bore a scar opposite of Zheng, Clone Zheng, as well as the strongest team of God's realm he represented, Team Devil. There was also the position he stood at, that of the apex of God's realm. Clone Zheng stood on God's platform, looking relatively unchanged from before. A pair of wings on his back, with a face with an icy expression and bearing a scar. The sole difference was that the black flames on his body looked deeper. Looking at it with one's eyes made it feel as if their soul was about to be sucked in. The black flames continuously encircled his body, expanding and contracting ceaselessly. 7 days left. 7 days until we can control God. We just need to pass Resident Evil, Extinction. Luo Gondo looked at God with a complicated expression, murmuring. But Team China's leader, that real Zhenjia, is incredibly strong. An Asian girl besides him suddenly opened her mouth. Gondo abruptly turned his around, with a serious look. You used the God sealing board again? Those causality points weren't easily accumulated. Even I almost died a few times for those points, and you just randomly used them? You stupid woman, that's an important weapon for the final battle. The girl's expression was panicked, and she said softly, but Xian said to gather data on Zheng Zha's strength, and it was fine to use around 100 causality points. So, Chu Xian. Is that all your mind thinks about? Stupid woman. Gondo inhaled deeply and began to shout. Enough. Clone Zheng raised his head silently, the black flames on his body violently surging up. Everyone around him retreated several steps back in terror, and only then did the flames subside. He spoke to Gondo, that's enough. Save your anger now. Let it burst forth when we face Team China in the final battle. Don't use it on the important battle forces in our team. 7 days left. I'm going to a movie world for a year to sleep, until my light of the soul recovers from the injuries that time back to its current peak. Then, everyone prepare for battle. Before that, Xian. I authorize your plan. Use 1000 causality points and analyze all strengths, enhancements, and possible internal conflicts of Team Celestial. Xian, you'll be planning out Team Celestial's downfall. I don't want any flies bothering my fight with him. No one is allowed to. This is our fight. A battle between Team Devil and Team China, between evil and kindness. So, Team Celestial must be eliminated. Clone Zheng turned towards God when he finished speaking. Team Celestial. Adam was sitting in the center of God's platform. A bottle of red wine was next to his hands, while he himself stared at God in a daze. From time to time, he would take a sip of the red wine, thinking about something no one knew. It was only that handsome smiling face of his looked cold. Adam, something on your mind? A woman with light black skin sat down beside Adam. Her figure was tall and graceful, her breasts and buttocks shapely. Her appearance wasn't that of a black girl's. She seemed to be of mixed descent, with an appearance closer to that of a European or American woman. Yes. I'm thinking of some matters about the final battle. Adam smiled slightly towards the woman, before returning to silent contemplation. The final battle? It really is approaching. It's just 7 days away. The mixed-blood woman mumbled. She lay gently on Adam's chest, gently tracing it with her finger. Elias, are you scared of dying? Adam suddenly asked. Of course I am. Who wouldn't be? Elias paused momentarily, before speaking charmingly. Scared of death, did you know? I'm Generation 2.0, or to be accurate, Generation 1.5. That's because there shall be no Generation 2. All the data was destroyed. It's as they say. Inspiration begins only with the meager revelation of the heavens. This technology should never have existed in the world, and was only coincidentally discovered by man. Or perhaps, the old man who created him was a genius even more exceptional than us? That's obviously not possible. To use a saying of the Chinese, everything in this universe is preordained. Perhaps those outside the box creators, invented this technique. The old man then obtained it, and then there was him and me. Adam ignored Alia, his eyes staring blankly at somewhere unknown. He is a perfect existence. Although from some aspects, that perfection represents imperfection. He lacks pain, taste, smell, feelings, and hormones, and seems to be merely a human-shaped computer. It sounds like an erroneous method of creation. However, when everything is rounded out, he obtained wisdom that surpasses mortals. At the same time, to remedy those imperfections, I, the Generation 1.5, was given slight hormones and feelings, while becoming slightly inferior to him. What a joke. Adam suddenly laughed. Elias, do you believe everything in the universe has already been willed? Elias frowned, showing a coquettish and seductive expression. After a long time, she finally spoke. I believe it. My clan members once told me that all the myriad things in the universe have spirits. No, when I speak of everything having already been willed, I'm not talking about the saying that the myriad things in the universe have spirits. I'm talking about destiny. What a fanciful word. An unseen hand is manipulating everything? A long time ago, when I was about 4, I already knew my destiny. Yes, it was to defeat him. That's why there's the existence of the God and Cien thieves. That's why I destroyed all the data, but the result was one mocking and which brings one to tears. He never considered me an opponent, whether in the real world or God's realm. The only thing in his eyes were the unknown that could be absorbed. I completely have zero idea what he's thinking. Even when our two teams faced off, he didn't take me as an opponent. Isn't this insulting? Adam smiled gently as he shut his eyes. He finally opened his eyes after a long while. Perhaps there are only two things he can consider his opponent. One is destiny itself, that unseen hand that is manipulating everything, and secondly, himself, that is completely and utterly the same. Only these two. Adam suddenly kissed the beauty in his embrace. Letting it all out really was nice. Then let's continuing to think down the doubts before. Why would Chu Xian have a Team China member be a hostage? Or, how did a Team China member become a hostage? This is important. Although I still don't understand why he would do so, there's some important information hidden within. This information will influence the safety of us Team Celestial, and even the conclusion of the final battle. What exactly is it? No matter what Adam thinks it is, he can't stop something from happening, which is Team Devil acting against Team Celestial. Xian Head didn't even rise as he busied himself in the basement. Hunglu was sitting on a chair behind him. He thought hard about it, finally saying, impossible. This hypothesis can't be substantiated. Why would you think so? Because, based on analysis of clone Zheng's words in the perfect storm, what he desires is an all-out battle with Zheng. An all-out battle can't not mention their teams. As the team leaders of Team China and Team Devil, the entire team is part of their strength. Putting it another way, Team Celestial is strong enough to pose a threat to our teams. It's like a triangle, a sturdy shape. 3 forces is the most balanced. If you want a decisive battle between Team Devil and Team China in the final battle, whatever Team Celestial wants to do, whether make peace, cooperate, help one side attack the other, or act as the fisherman waiting at the side to reap the rewards, their very existence is a threat. Xian raised his head. That's why I made such a scheme in the previous movie. My scheme is but the beginning. The next part will be handled by my clone. If he and I are the same, what I would do in his place would be make the suggestion to destroy Team Celestial to clone Zheng. He'll use the method for observing the other teams to create a scheme to eradicate Team Celestial. If he was me, hell definitely do that. What a horrifying level. A single Chu Xian is enough to overturn the skies and shake the world. If 2 of them cooperate, with even 2 strong teams and different influences behind them, who can rival them? 2 Zhengs. Honglu stood up with a bitter smile. He had lost this round, and it was a sincerely convincing defeat at that. They could begin a scheme for the final battle in the previous movie. The 2 Xians had neither met nor discussed before they were familiar with the other party. They had used the other's scheme as a starting point for their own. Honglu really was speechless. Alright. Since my queries have been solved, I'll go train. Honglu stretched lazily, walking to the room door as he said. Not staying behind to look at me experiment? Xian asked without raising his head. I don't have enough lives for that. Speaking of which, that technique you obtained from Independence Day, the dual particle annihilation reaction, can indeed provide enough energy to slightly activate the Bell of the East Emperor, but is it safe? The Bell of the East Emperor's defensive abilities is strong and is able to block this level of explosion. When Honglu heard that, he ran towards the room's door, not even turning his head back. When he ran out of the room, faint tremors were transmitted from within in the instant he shut the door behind him. He didn't dare turn back, hurriedly returning to his room with his face pale. I really am gutsy. I actually sat in such a dangerous spot for 5 minutes. Looks like it isn't wrong when they say experts are courageous. I've already enhanced the weave. I only need to increase the variety of magics. And those legendary magics. Can I pick one of those? The little boy gave God's platform a look before he entered his room. Multiple team members were standing there silently. They were making the final preparations for the final battle, considering their enhancements and techniques.